For this guide, this isn't going to be a typical tell you what I think kind of video. I will show you my official weapon rankings with some damage calculations, as well as his best artifacts for both his physical DPS and Geo Nuker support builds. I will also talk about his stat priorities so that you actually understand how to build him step by step, because not everyone has the same artifacts and it will mostly depend on your stat ratios. Starting off with the weapon rankings, if you're playing him as a physical DPS, the best weapon for him currently will be the Crescent Pike. So the Crescent Pike is ranked first mainly because of its massive damage, but this is actually only with the effect active. If you have a near permanent uptime of its effect, the Crescent Pike at rank 3 or above will utterly outdamage the other polearms. But the main problem with this is that managing the collection of energy particles can be tough if you're not constantly aware of it, since the buff only lasts for 5 seconds, which is around 2 sets of auto attacks. Because of this, you will need characters that can constantly generate energy particles without being on the field. Currently, using Fischl's Oz is one of the best ways to maximize the uptime of this effect, but once Oz isn't active, then you'll need to use your skills wisely. The second best weapon would be the Primordial Jade Spear, and even though on paper it does just slightly below the Vortex Vanquisher, it is actually placed higher because realistically, it has a much easier condition to manage, whereby you only need to hit 7 times to get the full benefits of this polearm. The Vortex Vanquisher is ranked after the Primordial Jade Spear mainly because you need a shield up to benefit from its effect. So let me explain. One of the benefits of having a shield is that you don't have to dodge attacks, which therefore increases your DPS uptime, but since you have to keep your shield up to do more damage, you technically lose this benefit if you dodge attacks while having a shield up. So what's the point of having a shield when you're treating it like a damage buff instead of actually making it function as a shield? Shields are technically meant to be broken because that's how you get value out of it. Why not just take the Crescent Pike or the Primordial Jade Spear to benefit from both effects? Most importantly, shields do not stack, and this has been clarified by an official MiHoYo post. If you have 2 shields up at the same time with 10,000 health each, you will only block 10,000 damage in total instead of 20,000. It also punishes you for creating a shield in preparation for taking an attack, which basically reduces the strength of the shield or even breaking it. This means that you'll want another character who can create a shield to help you manage your shield uptime better. So I would only use this weapon if you don't have the Primordial Jade, or if you only have a rank 1 Crescent Pike, or if you find it easier to manage a shield than to collect energy particles. If you plan to build him as your Geo Burst support, the weapon ranking goes like this. The Kunwu is going to be the best in slot, followed by the next big jump, which is a very close comparison between the Skyward Lens, the Vortex Vanquisher, the Primordial Jade, and the Kunwu without any of their effects active. And the last big jump will be the Deathmatch and the Favonius Lens. The reason why I don't count the Vortex Vanquisher and the Primordial Jade with their effects up is because that is considered unrealistic. You will not have their effects if you're using him as a Geo support. Also, don't even think about attacking like 5 times before you use your burst because you will lose DPS if you do that. Artifact sets that are proven to be the best for a physical DPS Zhongli will depend on the weapon that you're using. If you're using the Crescent Pike, it's pretty much Bloodstained 2-piece with the Gladiator's 2-piece. This is because the Bloodstained 2-piece physical damage bonus also applies to the Crescent Pike's additional hits, but the Gladiator and the Bolite 4-piece set does not increase this damage. And if you're not using the Crescent Pike, then you would want to go for the Gladiator 4-piece. Looking at this table, using the 4-piece Bolite over the Gladiator basically decreases the damage of everything except for his charge attacks, and it also creates this condition of you having to manage your shield uptime and making sure that it doesn't break. In my opinion, this isn't really worth it. Yes, you might get more damage if you spam charged attacks with the Bolite 4-piece against maybe like a big group of enemies, but if you factor in the damage increase of his Meteor with the Gladiator 2-piece effect, which is the plus 18% attack, then it basically evens out. Theoretically, the best artifact set for a Geo support Zhongli that will give your party the most damage bonus will be the Archaic Petra 4-piece set, if you're able to proc its 4-piece effect. How it works is, if you're using Diluc for example, you'll want to trigger a crystallized reaction with the Pyro element to increase Diluc's Pyro damage or any other Pyro characters in your party. This also means that it is a conditional artifact, so don't use this unless you know what you're doing. This is pretty much useless against enemies with innate elements such as the slimes or the hypostasis bosses, and in the first place, you wouldn't even be using someone like Diluc to go against like a group of Pyro slimes. Even if you do bring those characters, which is fair because you might not have many geared characters, but what's the point of increasing their pyro damage against the pyro slimes when they're literally just immune to pyro damage? Of course, if you really want to use this set for like speedruns or fast kills and you kinda know what you're doing, then just go ahead. It is legit the best set after all, but it's just situational. The best set in general that has no conditions would be the Noblest 4-piece, solely because it provides a damage boost to your entire party, which is going to give you way more value than the Petra 2-piece effect. So let's just talk about an actual scenario. When you petrify enemies, the most obvious thing to do next would be to just pump out as much damage as you can, which is why this attack bonus for your entire team becomes much more valuable. If you already have someone in your party with the 4-piece Noblest Oblige, then of course just use the 2-piece Petra and the 2-piece Noblest Oblige. Before going into his artifact main stats, you do have to know how to build him based on his stat priorities because you can't just blindly go for artifact main stats without knowing his ideal stat ratios. After running countless damage simulations, this is basically what I found. To build him optimally, first you want to get his attack to around 1.9 thousand, but of course if you have a crit rate artifact that decreases your attack to like 1.8 thousand, but it has high attack percent and crit rate or crit damage rolls, then use that instead. Energy recharge will be covered in a bit because it's not exactly easy to clarify this. The second stat to build will either be his physical damage bonus or Geo Dmg Bonus, depending on how you intend to play him. After these two stats are fulfilled, you'll want to start investing into crit rate and crit damage. Again, the ideal ratio is 1 to 2 for crit rate to crit damage, so if you have a total of 60% crit rate, you will want a total of 120% crit damage. My calculated estimation of how much energy recharge you need to spam his burst will be around 50% energy recharge, and this is assuming that you fight multiple enemies while Zhongli isn't your active character. The exact amount of energy recharge you need will be entirely situational because if you're fighting a bunch of enemies, they'll naturally just give you energy as they die or at certain thresholds, but if you're fighting against a single target, then it can be really tough for you to gain energy. If you're running him as a physical DPS, the artifact main stats that you want will be attack percent on your sense, and as for your goblet, you'll want the physical damage bonus percent, and as for your circlet, it will depend on whether you have 1.9 thousand total attack, and if you do have above 1.9 thousand, then go for crit rate, otherwise just stick to attack percent on your circlet. And as for his Geo support build, you'll want attack percent or energy recharge on his sense, and definitely not HP percent. You might be thinking of going HP percent because his burst does more damage based on his max HP, but HP percent is strictly worse as a main stat because it's going to give you less damage than attack percent. If you want HP percent, then only get it from your substats. His goblet is pretty straightforward, that's going to be a Geo Dmg Bonus main stat. And lastly for his circlet, you'll want attack percent if you need it to get a total of 1.9 thousand attack, but if you are well above 1.9 thousand, then go for crit rate. As a Geo support, he will actually scale better with crit rate because you don't really want a 25% chance to crit on your Meteor when it's actually just one hit. You should aim to get like 80% chance to crit on your Meteor instead, even if you do have low crit damage. Finally, artifact substats that you'll want to look out for are attack percent, crit rate and crit damage percent, energy recharge, and HP percent. That's pretty much it, and if you want more quick guides that aren't just random opinions but with research and damage calculations, do hit the like and subscribe button. That's all for this video and thanks for your support.